We're live.
We're live. I see the little one.
People are going to see us. Anyway, hello everyone. My name is William. I go by WJR Parks, and this is Janelle Coberly. We're
Uh,
writers in the Ravenverse. We're actually gonna start doing a channel or a YouTube channel, which is this one right now. Um, and we're gonna actually try to go and post a video maybe on Tuesday and Thursdays. Tuesday's going to be more centered around Ravenverse, talking about our writing. Uh, Thursdays we're going to try to do tips and tricks that we've kind of learned over the years. So hopefully see how it goes. This is our first try in an actual YouTube channel, so we're not experts at anything except for what we've learned. And hopefully we learned something from writing all these years. So first of all, a little bit of background for me. I'm mainly write in urban fantasy and dark fantasy is the main genre that I dabble in. My very first book was Raven Vampire, which you can see back here. And then I have a couple other characters that branched off from there. And then as far as my history of writing, I actually started writing since I was 4, but I started with comic books and dropped the comic books, completely focusing on writing aspect after that. And I think the very first book I ever wrote was nothing but epic fantasy. Started off from Dungeons and Dragons that I had played with people when I was young, and from those games I kind of learned how to create characters and dabbled into my first novel. Then I quit for about 7 years, and then finally Raven came into fruition, and I've been writing ever since. And then I don't know, Janelle, I guess you can tell us a little bit of your history and who you are and what we plan to do with the channel, I guess.
well, my name is Janelle Coberly, and I write. Well, originally I started writing romance um, and stage plays to an extent when I was a kid, a little kid. Uh, I used to love to write stage plays, and then I would get my sisters and my brother to be the actors. And we built a little stage out on the patio, and uh, we had curtains and everything, and I would incorporate them to be my actors, and they would act out the little plays that I wrote. And eventually we ended up doing it all over the neighborhood. So it's kind of where I got started. And then the writing bug never left me. I just wrote off and on all through my life and tried to do it, of course, between working and um, surviving and supporting a small family. Um, and I always wrote romance. And then some years back, I met Will, and Will wrote fantasy, and he got me interested. And that's something else he did not mention. He is a terrific artist, and he makes the most beautiful book covers for our books. So he's very talented. Besides having a very fragrant mind, I mean, this kid can come up with more stories. uh, anyway, eventually we became co-authors, and he let me take on some of his characters from his Ravenverse. Um, and so the character that I write now, she is a sheriffum, and a sheriffum is half human and half angel. And she gets into different situations. She's lived for hundreds of years, and she has become a PI in New York City. So she gets into different situations with that. Now, we did write a short story on her first to kind of introduce her, and then we just finished a novella which came out just, I think, last month. Was it, Will?
Yeah.
And thank goodness what Will did was he took the short story and the novella and put them together so that you could kind of get a better idea of who she is and where she's coming from, and a little glimpse into her character. Now we are in the process of writing another book, and this is going to be a book. This is not a full book, probably. I know we're going to try to aim for what 90,000 words or so, something like that.
80,000, 90,000, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So, and that's going to be with some other characters out of Ravenverse. We're going to mix her in with them and see where it goes from there. And it's looking pretty good so far. So.
Maybe dabble into me, I guess, getting pulled into the romance aspect with the Lobo brothers there for a little bit.
A little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit. And
yeah. And so that kind of leads on to what we're going to talk about, just because I don't necessarily dabble into romance. So biggest subject for today, or our main subject for today, was the ideas of writing what you know, or writing within the confines of what you know. And I guess I take it as a idea of writing within what genre I know, which for me is, like I said, dark fantasy. So I can write tons in that sense because I know it like the back of my hand. Well, I wouldn't say I'm like the king of knowing like in the back of my hand, but like I guess I know enough about the genre, and I've read enough books in it to kind of understand what the guidelines would be and what not to add and what to add. Romance, on the other hand, I never really dabbled into it. I kind of pepper it here and there in my books, but not really, I guess, completely focused on it to where it gave me enough confidence to write a story about it. So, but anyway, you had some ideas as far, I forgot what you had called it, like writing within the confines of what you know, but you didn't quite agree with something.
Just about all the writing books that you read, that where you're trying to learn, instruction books, a lot of them say, or most all of them say, write what you know. Well, that's a little bit hard in some genres, like fiction, for example, when it comes to vampires. And I mean, we're not vampires, we're not werewolves. I mean, how do you write about, you don't know anything. We don't know anything about that. So I don't think that you can apply it to all genres. And as far as like romance goes, well, we've all had romance in our life, so that's kind of a given there. But and locations, of course, those can all be researched and so on like that. And if you are, say, a military man or something, I'm sure you've had a lot of experiences and things like that you can apply to your novels or your short stories or whatever. But there's some areas that you just can't write what you know because it's impossible. I'm not a vampire.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess when I read them in the books, I kind of tend to think they fall more under the idea of like vampires, werewolves, all those paranormal creatures fall under dark fantasy and urban fantasy. And to me, the way I take it is I know how to write dark fantasy and urban fantasy. That's my main focus. So, like going back to what I said, within the guidelines of writing what you know, within that genre, there's, werewolves, according to other stories that have been out there. If you follow certain stories, some of them you're going to go in the path of they change by the phases of the moon, or if you get bitten, you become a werewolf, or you get cursed, you become a werewolf. There's there's different paths, but they all fall because of so many different stories that have been written that created these rules and ideas that you need to follow. Vampires, the same thing. You can either go with the old lore of like they go way deep into some of the things that vampire, like if you throw rice on the ground, let's say, these vampires are supposed to stay there and count the rice. Some can't cross running water. Some can't. What is it with garlic? They're allergic to garlic. Wolf's bane. So all that is because of the lore and history created through years of actual human history of what people used to believe in back in the day. And then people started just creating these stories, and all these stories create the guidelines and rules of what these vampires and werewolves fall under. And that's the way I see it when people say, write what you know. Well, I know those guidelines and rules, so I know how to create this world of like Ravenverse, these world of vampires and stuff. Of course, my vampires are a little bit different, and they still follow a lot of the lore, but yet also are way more powerful than certain vampires, and they get their powers a certain way. But then that means that I'm creating another guideline or another tome of information for other people to probably write on if the books ever make it pretty big out there. Yeah. So that was my take on it, as far as like writing what you know, compared to being like, I don't know, an actual vampire. I guess you couldn't really, unless there's really an actual vampire out there that you can sit down and interview.
I don't think you could find one.
But yeah.
Well, that's a fantasy too, because the fantasy genres, because because it is fantasy. You can write just about anything you want. I mean, you have a wide open field.
I think that's why I love fantasy compared to, I don't know, when I first started writing, I wrote in my fantasy world Solar, but there wasn't very much as far as the rules of Earth. I could pretty much do whatever I wanted. I create whatever land, however I want it to look, how I want the trees to look, if they want to look purple or pink or regular green. Yeah. So I guess that's the one benefits of writing fantasy. I mean, there are kind of ideas and rules that you know compared to all these other books that you read, but at the same time, you can create your own rules or instead of creating just your own rules, you can take bits and pieces of them and then create your own world from there. And the end outcome, I guess, is all about characters. It's all characters and what makes the story, I guess, compared to their conflicts.
Well, I guess there's character-driven stories, and then there's
plot-driven.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
I think mostly.
I guess there's like so many plots that you can do, but it all ends up into characters. So, but I know it's as far as like how we've always written. I guess I know that I kind of push the lines on a lot of things, and I like to play around. And it's like if I'm gonna play around with vampires, I like to see what kind of stuff I can do with them, and then with the werewolves and.
Fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah. And like I said, that's what I know how to do. Which will be fun though, getting into romance with Leonette, what we're doing right now. It's like trying to I read some romance novels and try to get an idea on how they play the part. On how, because for me, when I write, I have to add the conflict and the fighting scenes, and that's really easy for me. I guess going back to what I know how to write fight scenes, I know how to write action scenes, and I know how to create the conflict. But when you're trying to write romance, I don't know it as well, but you still have to have conflict and not necessarily fighting, but you still have to have a way to keep the story moving forward. So you have to put problems in there, and you have to either make the people like at first they hate each other, but then eventually they start liking each other, and then they're like fall in love finally at the end. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see how I can progress through that.
Yeah. Well, romance is, like I said, just in conflict. It's like any other build up to the big romance scene. It's, there's a lot of conflict that gets involved in between the two characters. And then finally you get to the actual romance, I guess you could say.
But anyway, yeah, so we just wanted to do a first intro video, our first episode. We wanted to talk about what you know, and or writing within the confines of what you know, and kind of our aspect and kind of opinions on how we see that.
Well, we're going to have, especially for new writers, I don't think that you should worry too much about writing what you know, because one thing you can do is a lot of research. And like Will said too, you can read other, for instance, if it's vampires, you can read other books written on vampires and get a lot of kind of rules and things to follow. But just don't get worried about it. Don't worry about it. Don't get uptight about it. Just write your story. And of course, do the best you can do and so on. But I just don't think you have to follow every rule or idea on a real. You don't have to put yourself on a tight string. Just write.
Yeah,
and write a lot.
That's the main thing. Just get down and write.
One thing too, I want to add that I am no fantastic best-selling author type. I wish, but I'm not. I'm not a Greg Giles, my idol, or a Stephen King or anything like that. I just love to write, and Will and I have had a lot of fun doing it together and publishing some of our books. So.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I just love writing. I like creating these characters and see where they take me. So yeah, for anybody that's starting out, like I said, we're not experts. We got some books out, but we're just kind of, writing at the seat of our pants, right? Because
and trying to encourage other new beginners, the new writing beginners that are beginning to write.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. No, I thought you were going to say more.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. But yeah. So I hope we gain some new viewers, and if you do want to check out our books, like I said, Raven was the first one. We worked on Leonette. I don't know if you can see her back here. That's the one that we both co-authored. We co-authored another one with Raven called Allegiances. But check us out on Amazon and Kindle. We're W.J.R. Parks and Janelle Kroberly. You can look us up there. And if you want to go to my website, we're still working on Janelle's. She's figuring out how to do the social platforms and websites right now. So, but for mine, you can go to wjrparksauthor.com, and I'll figure out how to put it down in the links under the YouTube channel. So, but anyway, thank you for tuning in. This is our first episode, so look forward to other ones. Like I said, it'll be Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we do plan to have author interviews. We're going to try to see if we can get a list and a lineup of authors that we can talk to and hopefully share more tips for you guys, for any of the new writers or writers who are been writing for a while, but maybe you can learn something from us. I don't know, learn something from our mistakes. It's like, what are they doing? No, you don't do it that way. Or just drop in some comments and let us know how you like to write and what kind of tips you would give new aspiring authors out there. But anyway, thank you for joining us. This is Ravenverse, and look forward to seeing you again. Bye.